jalamati taralam tadvajjivita matishaya chapalam vidhi vyadhyabhi managrastam lokam shokah tam cha samastam. Nalini dalagata jalamati taralam tadvajjivita matishaya chapalam vidhi vyadhyabhi managrastam lokam shokah tam cha samastham. The title given to this verse is Instability of Life. A very famous verse. He says, water, it's actually a drop of water. Water on a lotus leaf is extremely unsteady. Nalini dalagata jalamati taralam. So also is life. Tattva jivita atishaya chapalam. So also is life very unstable. Atishaya. Atishaya means very. Chapalam is unstable. Vidhi vyadhyabhimana grastam lokam shokam aham cha samastam. Understand the very world is consumed by disease, vyadhi, grastam, consumed by shoka, sorrow, is afflicted by sorrow, and abhimana, conceit. This can be the headlines today in the World Times. Any paper, any newsprint can take this as headlines. It is as relevant, so relevant to us, is it not? Now look at, please, now you may be saying, sir, why is the Guru so pessimistic? The Guru is not being pessimistic at all. The Guru is being very realistic. He is only telling us how does he look at our lives. We may not look at our lives this way, but this is how the Guru looks at our lives. So he talks about how unsteady our life is, and he compares, he draws a parallel to a drop of water on a lotus leaf. Have you not heard this analogy before? The water itself is unsteady. The lotus leaf which is on the water is unsteady. And then what about the water on that unsteady leaf? What is the stability of that drop of water on that unsteady leaf? How long does it take for the drop of water to fall back into that lake? Any moment. A passing breeze is enough to unsettle the drop of water. It's almost dancing. He says, life is unsteady. Now, how do you rationalize this? Do you experience that? Do you feel that unsteadiness now? In fact, we all have given ourselves an exaggerated value to our lives. I'm not saying it is wrong, but I'm only trying to say there are two extremities. On one hand, we have an exaggerated value for our lives. On the other hand, he says life is extremely unsteady. Even amongst, none of us amongst us will believe that life is unsteady. Why are we not able to understand this reality of life? Vanitama, if I can ask you, why do you think, first of all, do you believe that there's any truth in that statement?
Yeah, I believe there is.
All right, then, but do you believe that people are able to relate to that perception, look at life from this perspective?
I suppose it's difficult.
If the truth is that life is unsteady, then why are we not able to perceive, look at life this way? Any thoughts?
I suppose because we think it's not.
Are we thinking first of all? Are we thinking about these matters first of all in life? Does it consume us? Does it bother us? It doesn't, isn't it? So our focus has shifted, is somewhere else. Where is our focus?
On the objects of enjoyment.
On the objects of enjoyment. We are enchanted by the acquisition and enjoyment of the world. We have lost the realities of life. We don't understand life at all. We don't understand how life is, how fragile life is. We don't understand life in general. We don't understand the purpose of life. We don't understand what is life at all. So we're just enchanted, just carried away by whatever that comes our way. Sadly so, isn't it? What a pity. What a pity that we are not able to realize the realities of life. But when you start examining life, life is extremely unstable. That is the reality, which means it can happen, it can end anytime. There is no guarantee of life. There's no guarantee. And in fact, if you look at it positively, what is it that makes you believe that there is no end to life? Even a person, you go, doctors are given, this person has, there's no guarantee. This person is no more. In fact, you can't do any more, rather. Even that person believes I'm going to live. Something in him tells I'm going to live. Huh? What is it that makes him believe that? It's very interesting. A very, very powerful thought process there. Venkatji?
Yeah, okay. Yes, Guruji.
My question is, what makes a person believe that there is no death?
I think anyone with good sense will know that there is death, there is end of life. So if someone believes, I think he is out of his mind.
Yes, you're right. But yet, I don't think it is right for us to think that when I'm going to die, It's not right for us to even keep thinking of death all the time, isn't it? It's very pessimistic, isn't it?
Correct.
You know, there are people who get paranoid of death just taking a flight. They get paranoid, isn't it? But there's a great chance of I meeting an accident driving than dying out of a flight crash. Statistics tell us that. Just an example. So the thought of death is not right. My question is, what is in it in us that makes us believe that there is no death, there is no end? It's a very positive, very powerful thought by itself. Perhaps that's the reason why we don't really believe in it, even though the reality is something else.
Now, I think we do know that there is death, but I think we are consumed by so many other things. You don't really think of death because that's very depressing.
Very true. Yeah.
We just have to carry on. It's going to happen.
Yes. Now, again, as I've said, I agree with you, sir. Very true. I have said it is not meant to be taken in a very pessimistic note. It's being very realistic. But if you go along with the thought which I mentioned, what is in it that makes us believe that we are never going to die is the real self, the real Atman, the real core of our personality is the truth, which has no death. So deep, deep within, we are unknowingly, unconsciously asserting our real self. This body which I claim myself to be me, I am not this body. I am not this assemblage of elements. I am not this mere elements which composes this body. So if you deep within even the most ignorant person, every one of us are asserting this truth that the core, the Atman is right within us. You take an elaborate, you plan such an elaborate program. You want to go to Tirupati, Lord Balaji. You plan well in advance so that you get that special darshan where your entire family gathers so that you have the darshan of the Lord. You plan ahead, you go, take the time, you spend that little time in the queue. You are there at the darshan at that appointed time. You are there in front of the Lord while the puja is going on, while the arati is going on. What do? What does one do? Nikki ji, what does one do when you stand in front of the Lord?
It's a sort of surrender. It's a sort of, you feel a presence. And you feel like there may be some sort of guidance.
We all do surrender, yes.
Yeah, so you sort of.
But what I'm asking is, what does everybody do unknowingly, unconsciously?
I mean, people may ask for something.
Yes. Now, what am I trying to convey here? Why did I switch the example? Prior to this, what was I saying?
I think that the core of what you are is not your body. It's an idea or sort of amalgam of things, and that continues.
Yes, the inner core never dies, isn't it?
Right.
When I know for certain, for certain, when I die, it's just the body that dies. In fact, I'm talking from an absolute point of view. And relatively, I'll convey this message. But I'm talking from an absolute level. The Atman in me never dies. Now, conveying in that thought flow, I said, when I go to the Lord for darshan, I've done such effort just to capture the glimpse of the Lord right in front of me, a few feet apart. But what is it I do unconsciously? Unconsciously, don't we all close our eyes?
Mm-hmm.
While we pray, you're not praying with your eyes fully open, isn't it? You close your eyes gently, you pray. And I remember I never understood this. I remember as a kid, we used to go so often to Tirupati and used to stand in the queue for hours and then get the darshan or plan so much and get that experience. And when you only have a few moments, a minute or 2 or 5 minutes, if at all you're lucky you have. And in that moment, my mother would be saying, close your eyes, close your eyes. And if I'm trying to see and get a glimpse of the Lord, she'll put a hand in front of me and say, close your eyes. I said, Chief, what are you doing? I am gone all the way here just to see the Lord, and you say, close my eyes. They had no answers for me. I never understood why until I got to this knowledge, and the knowledge revealed the truth that unknowingly, unconsciously, even though you're objectifying God outside, deep within unknowingly, you're realizing it, subjectifying it as an experience within. It is not God, darshan is not an objective experience, it's a subjective realization. Don't we all do that, Mickey ji? Isn't it?
It's true. I think it's related to what you were saying about the senses. You know, we assume that the world is what our senses tell us, but at the most profound moments, we probably realize that not quite so.
It's not true. Yeah, it's all. So either you find the illusory world real, or you believe the God to be out there real. It's not out there. It's all within, isn't it? So the real self in us is that which never dies. But even when a person dies, since I'm mentioning of it, when a person dies, it's just the physical body. But what actually happens is there is something called as the mind and the intellect. We all know what is known as subtle matter, the vasanas. So the vasanas, along with the mind and intellect, they have left this body and taken up another body. So in reality, the real substance of who I am never dies. It's just the physical environment. You have changed your environment. The real I, the real who you are never dies. That carries on. But however, he's only trying to tell us life is very short. In fact, I've heard of people having these programs. They use this methodology in their workshops, trying to, they say, if tomorrow is your last day, guaranteed there's no, you would not see the end of tomorrow. Tell me what you would do the last 24 hours of your life. How would you want to spend it? How would you want to make the most of it? And then they are made to think that way. And then they realize, oh my God, what are the most valuable things, the most important things? What is it that meant so much to them? What is it that means so much to them? So they're made to think that way so that you understand how fragile, how impermanent, how temporal life is. But it is not to think that way, but to understand that at the back of the mind, life is very precious. Therefore, let me make the most of it. It can happen anytime. Therefore, let every moment count. Let every action count. Let every thought count. That should be the attitude. That should be the approach. So the first half of the verse, he says that. And the second half of the verse, he says, please understand, vidhi, understand that the entire world, vidhi, lokam samastam, the entire world, three things he says, is consumed by disease, vyadhi. Now this is, I think it's, the entire world is actually consumed by vyadhi now, isn't it? If you can remove the word vyadhi and put corona, you will understand it very well. The entire world is consumed by corona. Corona, sorry, whatever. At the physical level, you're consumed by disease. At the mental level, you're consumed by shokam, which is sorrow. At the mental level, you're full of agitation. At the intellectual level, abhimana. There is this arrogance, there's intellectual conceit. Either you understand the instability of life and consumed by life whenever it does consume you. But even until you get to the very end, you don't realize that the entire journey is full of, at all levels of your personality, there is this disease, there is a sorrow, or there is conceit. So what he's saying, even when you're alive, are you leading a life free from all these things? Is it not a fact of life? He's just, as I've said, he's just giving us this perception, how he perceives life. At the physical level, you're constantly battling disease, isn't it? Constantly. The moment you relax, the moment your body becomes weak, you become a victim of disease. So at the physical level, you're constantly defending yourself. Alarmingly so now, you are so, if you are not careful even for a moment, you're asking for trouble. So body is full of disease. Nothing pleasant about it. At the mental level, you're full of agitation. Now, I would like to ask, what is it that causes agitations within us? I would like to engage more of you all. I don't see you all. Yes, Srinivasji. The question is, what causes agitation?
Wanting to do many things, more things, unending wishes, needs. So this is like a turbulence, keep continuously coming on a day-to-day life.
A constant desire, wanting to do more. So you think it's right to think that way?
I don't say it is wrong, because we need to be striving this life. We need to aspire those things. But the most important fact is the balancing it. Whether are we doing overdoing, or are we crossing the limits of our needs, or how you balance it. I think that's where the anxieties and concerns can be brought into the control, or I think I can say within the control. Because without thinking in the direction also is difficult to say. Because we need to compete, we need to strive, we need to fight, we need to get the things in place. All this requires a lot of karmas or efforts.
Yes, so you're very right. So on one hand, you have this, you have to strive, you have to progress, you have to evolve, you have to succeed, you have to compete. Because if you don't take that path of action and progression, you become stale, you become inactive, you become death. In fact, inaction is literally death. So, and yet, so while you're acting, how not to fall a prey to the worries and anxiety, the tension and the agitation and all that mental insecurities that come and consume us.
Right.
That's the whole thing revolves that, isn't it? Around that.
Right.
You have to be active, at the same time not fall a prey to these.
That's effective utilizing of the intellect and the wisdom. I think that's big, makes us to be a balancing of act.
Yes. Now, how would you use your intellect and wisdom to keep all this mental agitations, insecurities, mental fluctuations at bay? How do you use this wisdom? Anybody else? Very well said, Srinivas Garu. I agree to what you're saying. But how do you handle with it? Yes, Hirenji.
Okay.
Sorry, we can't hear you, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. very first session, we talked about three things: mind, intellect, and wisdom. So we'll have to constantly acquire wisdom in our life, and we should develop our intellect so that in the right time, when we have all these disturbances, we can select our decision based on that.
Yes, you're very right. But my clarification to even Srinivasji was that how do you bring in your knowledge and wisdom to handle the mental insecurity? Like in the very first verse, if I'm not wrong, is it the first verse? In fact, the second verse, we learned, that everybody is in this acquisition mode. Why does one acquire wealth? We learned the acquisition of wealth is to offset the mental insecurity, isn't it?
Right.
People acquire wealth with the belief that it's going to give me security.
Mm-hmm.
But
False.
it's not the material wealth that gives you security. In fact, the more wealth you have, the more insecure you are.
So how do you get there is the matter of practice, right?
No, it's not. You don't have to, it's not trial and error method, sir.
No.
You have to have sound reasoning and sound wisdom to be able to embark on a journey. In fact, we have discussed this in the Eternal Wisdom series, if it can ring a bell. Mm. Mm. Yeah, Venkatji.
I think, Guruji, one of your earlier sessions you mentioned you can balance acquiring wealth with spiritualism.
Yes. How do you do that?
I think become more spiritual.
That's a very sweet way of saying it, but how does one inject that spirituality? I'm only trying to gain clarity. How do I inject that element of spirituality which relieves me from the mental trauma, insecurity, and agitation? How do I need a solution. You go to a doctor with a problem, he just says, lead a healthy life. Yes, sir, but what is it I need to do? You want a clear-cut roadmap. I'm asking a roadmap to this problem.
I think follow the gurus and the leaders of spiritualism and listen to what they have to say.
Which you are doing, I suppose so. That by itself will not suffice, sir. I guarantee that. You can listen to me rest of my life, rest of your life. It will not guarantee. I can't guarantee that. So don't put that pressure on me. Not that you're doing so, but how to find that peace and charm and independence in wherever you are, whatever you're doing, to feel that freedom, that serenity in the best or worst of situations, how to free yourself from the mentally secure yourself. I see a couple of them, a few of them have used the chat to communicate. Dilip ji is saying not meeting the expectations causes agitation. So you must learn to manage your expectations, which was going to calm your mind. Very true. You've hit the nail on the head. But how do you rise above your own expectations? Sheila ji says by remaining active and doing our work. Again, we are looking at that secret, how to carry on our work and yet remain balanced. Suresh ji says attach Which detachment, that constant awareness with Atman. You have gone to very high levels, sir. Yeah, I wish we all can function at that level. Meenaji says, sacrifice beyond yourself for a larger cause. This is where it is. Mikiji, you have something to say?
No, I was just thinking, Guruji, that the analogy is if you're walking on a journey somewhere in a field and you don't know where you are or where you're going, it's a good idea to try to get to a higher spot, like climb a tree or get on a rooftop or a hill or something. You can then see at least what is ahead, where are the problems and where. So metaphorically, it's somehow if we can find a way to rise above what our immediate senses are telling us, by kind of reflecting or looking for the truth within, then it might give us that calming sense as well as a sense of purpose as to why we are doing what we're doing, and maybe make us a little more detached from this kind of frenzy.
Very, very beautifully captured. Very beautifully captured. Correct. Just raise your thought to something beyond yourself, isn't it? And this is known as, what do you call that element when you embrace a larger cause or think something beyond yourself? What do you call that element? What do you call that aspect of action? If you remember in the element of 5 lecture series we had, Eternal Wisdom, in that we spoke about action can be of 3 types. What are the 3 types of action? Tamasic action, Rajasic action, and Sattvic action. So whenever an action produces an agitation, whenever an action is sinful in nature, it is Rajas. Remember that. Now, what you got to do is, if you want to rise above the mental agitations and the sin is nothing but a mental agitation. Whenever action is remorseful or is causing mental trauma, where your expectations are not met, when you're riding on desires, that's Rajas. You got to rise from Rajas to Sattva. Sattva is when your actions are driven for a cause beyond yourself. That's the secret. The moment you got to stop and drop thinking about yourself. The problem is that I and mine. As long as your thoughts are centered around yourself, it's going to cause you a lot of agony and pain. The moment you rise beyond yourself, it's going to give you that much comfort, that much a grander perception. You are able to look at life from a greater perspective. I'll come back to this and clarify it. Yes, Haraprasad ji, you have something to say, sir, please.
Yes, now I can unmute.
Yes.
Yes, but this may not be the proper time for me to mention this, but I'm going to go ahead and mention it is very hard to communicate with you when you completely mute, and even if you raise our hands, you don't see it. I don't know why it is happening, but it is very hard. I suggest you unmute everybody and they should keep the silence in themselves. I think that may be a better idea. But anyway, you were asking me the question. The way I feel is, again, I go into the karma yoga aspects of it. It is, you have to do any attitude not to get affected by it, but only through 2 ways. One is whatever you do, you do it as an arpana to Ishvara, and let him give you whatever you deserve. If you don't deserve what you were seeking for, don't get depressed. And that is the attitude one should have.
Right, sir. Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Rajiv ji, you had something to say?
Not really. Yeah, I agree with all that has been said. I was just going to say that what you've been telling, and we all know that we shouldn't think too much about the results of the action, just focus on what you are doing. And as Shri Hari Prasad just now said, that you need to be aware that you will get what you deserve, So you just try to stay calm that the result is not in your hand. Actually, you are going to get what you deserve. So there's no point in getting agitated and anxious and all that kind of stuff.
Very true, sir. In fact, we have mentioned this, that which comforts you, that which gives you the right modus operandi while working is to understand in life that life always gives you what you deserve. Never ever ride on your desires and expectations. As long as there are these desires and expectations, it is invariable, it is always a possibility that your expectations and desires are not met. And when your expectations are not met, it only leads you into disappointments. Now, Vanitama, can I ask you to give an example where your expectations are not met and it gets you into disappointment? A simple example, it can be day-to-day chores in your day-to-day life where you find you have certain expectations from people. It could be in your home, it could be at work, it could be anywhere.
Say you're studying for an exam and you really expect to do really well, and the result is not to your expectation. That would be a disappointment.
For others or for yourself?
Depends on who the person is, I suppose.
So as a mother,
if someone
so if you're expecting
Yeah.
your children to do well, and if they don't do well, then you're disappointed, isn't it? But then what is the solution there? Can you say don't expect?
I guess work harder the next time and
With reference to that, with reference to that situation, would you say don't expect? Because if expectations not met, you're agitated. But can we take the other extreme and say don't expect anything at all?
No, you can say you can work towards a goal, but does not mean that that's going to be fulfilled. There's a good likelihood that the result may not be up to your expectation.
Therefore,
but
one should continue to strive, one should continue to put an effort, but always understand you must rationalize your expectations. The moment your expectations are unreasonable, then you're disappointed. But as long as you rationalize them and reason them out, you will fairly accept whatever fruits come your way, isn't it? You may have an opinion, but if your opinion is not accepted or received well, should that mentally disturb you? Well, I think in a particular way, but it's not necessarily mean that everybody at home or at work has to toe to line. They does not necessarily everybody has to agree to it. So it's possible somebody may turn back and say, your advice is absolutely rubbish. I don't accept with you. How would you handle that? That's your point of view. Isn't it? It doesn't necessarily mean I have to be accepted, isn't it? So my opinion may not be received well. That's all right. So when you are realistic in life, you will have no disappointments. Are you getting me?
Mm-hmm.
Now, with reference to when you say desires causes agitations, now if you look at desire, the desire in itself is so woeful. It creates so many complex modifications arise out of a desire. What are the various emotions? In fact, it's not wrong to say desire is the root of all emotion. Please remember this. Any emotion that you experience in life, desire is the root of it. So what are the various emotions that you can experience? When your desire is not met, you get anger. When your desire is met, what do you develop? You wanted something, you got what you wanted. What do you develop once a desire is met? Yes, Harishji, what do you develop?
Happiness.
Happiness.
Or seeming to think you're happy.
Temporary happiness, yes. What else happens when you get what you wanted?
You want more.
You want more. Very true. Yes, Srinivas Garu?
Satisfaction.
When your desire is met, it's a temporary satisfaction. How long does that satisfaction last?
It's a momentary. Again, you call for next goal, next requirements.
Yeah. So there is this tendency in the mind, it wants more. You only want more when your desires are met. So there is this greed. And the moment you have got what you wanted, you also develop what is known as mother arrogance. That's what he says at the intellectual level. You have conceit. You develop arrogance towards people who are less fortunate than you. You have an air of ego, a false sense of achievement.
That's true.
And then you become envious towards people who are more than you. Now, what else happens when you get your object of enjoyment? When you find success, one more emotion that you experience. Can anyone tell me what is that? Dilip ji?
When the desire is fulfilled, you get temporary happiness.
Yes.
As you rightly pointed out, that it leads to more desire. And one of the things I would like your insights on is, but desire is also a motivation factor for achieving growth. Most of the development in this world has come out of desire. So desire by itself, in my judgment, may not be bad. It is the managing of the desire and falling prey to the desire is bad. Means all of the new developments and scientific developments have come out of a desire, and that desire continues to be growing. That is why we have the computers. That is why we have all the modern development and modern society.
Yeah.
So my position is that desire itself is not bad, but managing desire and controlling yourself so you don't fall prey to the desire. That is where the chance comes. That's where the Sthita Prajna, as Arjuna says, Sri Krishna says, that is a very important concept of Sthita Prajna. So there is a difference in my judgment between dheya, which is the goal. Somebody else said that every action should have certain goal. And the moment you have a goal, you have set up the expectation that you will meet the goal. So there's nothing wrong in setting up the goal and having the expectation. However, if you don't meet the goal, when you get disappointment, that's where the managing the expectation becomes difficult. And that's where the concept of Sthita Prajna, Sama Dukkha Sukha Kshami, one has to handle both failure and victory in the same fashion. And that is the difficult part. That's where we are getting trained through your lectures and through your guidance. That's my perception. I could be wrong.
In fact, the fact that you have clarified it and you have actually answered it wonderfully yourself. What you must understand is, the terms we use in the Shastras use, whenever they talk of the word desires, which is the realm of Rajas, always has a selfish connotation. Vis-a-vis when we talk of a goal or an ideal or a purpose or an aim or an ambition, all of that has a grander purpose, a greater purpose, a larger cause, which is an unselfish in nature, which is the realm of sattva. So the difference is whether your actions are rajasic in nature or sattvic in nature. So if your actions are rajasic in nature, it has full of attachment, full of expectations, anxieties, disappointment, stress and strain. All this become an integral part of a life where one is driven by that selfish desires. I'm only working for myself, I and my. If that is the driving factor, this is inevitable price one pays. But when one works with a purpose to serve a larger interest, a greater cause, it could be in any field of activity. So you're trying to serve a larger community. So there is no hidden agenda. Like even the pandemic, which the world is still grappling to deal with. If you are in a medical industry or whether you are in a service industry, how would you serve the community? How could you serve the society? How could you alleviate the suffering of people? How can you bring them comfort? How can you bring them health? How you can serve them? If you have that larger cause in mind, then your actions will not have these agitations. And in fact, the emotion I was looking at, one of the powerful emotion you experience when you have success is fear, bhaya. There's this insecurity people feel. They have the fear of losing what they have. You have the fear of losing what you have because you've achieved success. Now the question is, but does every successful person necessarily have the emotion fear? Not so. But the question is, when does success, which is fulfillment of desire, bring about fear? Are you all thinking along with me? Are you all with me? When does the emotion fear come into the mind? Fear of losing the acquisition. This is a very, very powerful emotion that people are unable to handle. Fear of losing. You've got a job, you've got a fear of losing the job. You have a partner, you're fear of losing a partner. You have money, you're fear of losing your money. There's an enormous insecurity, fear. Why does one experience fear? You only experience fear over something you have. Meena ji says, Rajasic. Anup ji, yes sir, please share your views. Just a minute, sir. We'll be given the access, please. Just a minute, sir.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yes, now you can.
Yeah, when you feel that you have achieved something, and then now that you have expected to perform on it, then you say, will I be able to perform that? So that's when the fear comes in.
But there's
Will you be able to deliver?
But there's no necessity to believe that you wouldn't deliver, isn't it? You deserved it. You got it.
It could be that it
If
was
you
just a
didn't deserve it,
desire.
as I said that, if you didn't deserve it, you wouldn't get anything in life. Having got it, why are you feeling insecure about it?
It could come from, I mean, it was probably you were not expecting that you were going to get it. It was just a desire. And then when that happens, then the fear sets in that, did I really deserve that? Can I deliver on, for example, if here is I want a project, I want the project, now is the question of, can I really deliver that on what I promised?
Okay, I get what you're saying. There's certainly more to it. Yeah, Srinivas ji.
Guruji, as the word of fear, F-E-A-R, in my perception, is as said that the false emotions appearing real. It's all the time.
Okay.
It's all the time we are being intoxicated with these emotions. So you are being secure, but still the insecurity start creeping in your mind, because it's all developing from the mind perspective. It's emotions which are being bringing you to that the life is still unsecure and there is no death, because we are not sure about how the future, how the life is going to be. But these current emotions which is triggering in our mind is definitely leading to these uncertainties.
Okay. Now, if I can, yeah, okay, right, G. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Perfect. I like the way what you said, a fear is. It's all emotion playing a trick. Yeah, Mickey G.
No, I was thinking that, I mean, I agree with what everyone has said. I was thinking that the fear comes in if your motivation for doing that action is selfish. So if it is, I don't want to get political, but right now this pandemic is going on. A lot of politicians want to solve it to look good, and some people like Dr. Fauci want to do it because they're professional, they want to do the right thing. I don't think he's afraid, but I know many politicians who are doing it only for themselves, but they're not, that's, I guess, your Rajasic kind of mindset. Right?
Correct. Absolutely. In fact, you have hit the nail on the head. In fact, even Srinivas ji mentioned it rightly so. That, see, if you carefully followed the line of thought in answering Anup ji, I think Dilip ji earlier, I said that desires have a selfish connotation, isn't it? A goal or a purpose have an element of spirit of sacrifice in them. Yajna spirit, as we call. Now, the question I said is, when your desire is met, you are successful and you experience fear. But not necessarily that all successful people experience this emotion fear. So there was this line of thought I established, to which rightly Mickey has captured it very well, and others have also said it in their own way, that when your approach to that object of fulfillment, when you want to get what you want through a selfish means, if you have taken a route of selfishness, you will find yourself the emotion of fear very much in your mind. The fear consumes you, fear of losing what you have achieved, because you have acquired it through destructive means. Destructive means you have only thought of yourself and your own means, and you have not thought in the larger interest of others. And that is what that causes great fear of insecurity. So it's not what you get, it's how you go about getting it. The same thing you can get it by thinking of a larger interest, by thinking of everyone's welfare. You don't develop an attachment to it, and there's no fear of losing. Now, what is interesting, he's not saying all that in the verse. He's just saying the world is consumed by disease. He is consumed by shoka, sorrow, consumed by conceit. He's just saying one word, disease, agitation, shoka, sorrow. Now, we got to understand how it all springs from. So the root of all your emotion is your own selfishness. So if you can counter that, and you can only counter that by envisioning a larger cause, a greater vision or a purpose. The moment you conceive that, instantly you get yourself free from it. So the theme of the verse is life. Remember, the verse started off by saying life is extremely unstable, like a drop of water on lotus leaf. And all your entire life, you understand, is consumed by disease, is consumed by agitation, and consumed by conceit. So what you must understand is there is no time to waste. Let us embark on this journey to uplift oneself spiritually. Enough has been wasted on the non-essentials of life. Nothing should matter more than embracing with this wisdom. So one who truly understands the short sojourn of life, you will make the most of what time and opportunity provides you. So that's the spirit with which you got to perceive this verse. All right. We'll come back next week. We shall take up any clarifications, or we'll move on to the next verse. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.